Welcome. I think we are ready to start, and everybody who has been trying to log on has hopefully done so. So it's time to get started. Welcome to all of you. Ahlan wa sahlan. Hoş geldiniz. Bir serhati to our fourth session of the Qudra Resilience Dialogue. This dialogue, the fourth one, will focus on social cohesion and stability as part of the response to the crisis in Syria and Iraq. My name is Eba Augustin, and I am the CEO of a company that supports philanthropy in the Arab world. I am also the founder of the Arab Country Facilitator Network that is facilitating across the Arab region. Together with Sami Hourani, I have the pleasure to lead you through the series of web-based dialogues for practitioners on challenges and successes in the response to the crisis in Syria and Iraq. This meeting is held in English, Arabic, Kurdish, and Turkish. And I will explain in a minute when we look at the logistics how to go to the respective translation channels. Let's have a look at the agenda. So before we, perfect, thanks a lot. So we are starting with a kickoff. It's a pretty straightforward agenda. So we start with our kickoff and welcome note. Like all the other dialogues, we have a panel discussion with experts and practitioners from the region as a core, as well as a plenary discussion where US participants hopefully take an active role. We have a summary and then a closure of the meeting. Before we start with our panel, I would like to cover some housekeeping issues. For the choice of your language, as I mentioned, we have English as the main language of our meeting, Arabic, Kurdish, and Turkish translation. Please click on the item in the bottom bar of the Zoom screen. For questions and comments, to make sure that we don't run into delays due to connectivity issues, please use the chat interface in your Zoom screen. We would like to encourage you to really actively participate also during the panel discussion. So please post into the chat any questions and comment that you have. It would be helpful to have an interactive session. Please all abide by the online ethics and etiquette. In case you have technical issues, you cannot link up properly or can't hear properly, please send an email to contact@taimani.com for assistance, and they will come back to you ASAP. One note, please make sure that when you are in the listening mode, please mute your microphone. That would be very helpful because otherwise it's difficult. We have lots of interferences. Also, please note that the meeting will be recorded. And before we proceed, please, I would like to give the floor for a welcome to Martin Linden, the dialogue coordinator of Qudra 2 program. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eba. I hope you can hear me. My name is Martin Linden, as Eba just said, and I have the pleasure to welcome you all today on behalf of the Qudra program to this fourth resilience dialogue on the topic of social cohesion and stability. Let me share a few words about the Qudra program for those of you joining us for the first time. We are a large regional program supporting communities and local administrations affected by the crises in Syria and Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. We are a European initiative in the sense that we are co-funded by 3 European donors, the European Union Regional Trust Fund in response to the Syria crisis, the Madad Fund, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, as well as the Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation. And the program is implemented by 5 European development partners from Belgium, France, Germany, Hungary, and Spain. So today's topic is social cohesion and stability, a topic that I personally find extremely interesting, extremely challenging to work in. It is one of the cross-cutting objectives of the Qudra 2 program to promote social cohesion and stability. So it's something that we pursue across all of our activities in all countries and across all components. I think as practitioners on this call will know, it is an extremely challenging but also important context concept in the context of a forced migration crisis, because it's not only about providing education opportunities, psychosocial support, employment opportunities, and access to basic services, which are the main objectives of the Qudra 2 program, but it's to do so in a context where many already vulnerable communities who have been making extraordinary efforts over a long period of time to host refugees, IDPs, as well as returnees, depending on the context that we are talking about, are already facing vulnerabilities. And so there is real and perceived competition over the available resources. And that needs to be taken into account in everything that we do. If you pick up any publication on the topic of social cohesion, it will almost surely state that the concept is very useful, but also very difficult to pin down. And so to address this challenge, when we started the implementation of Qudra, what we did as the 5 implementing partners is we jointly developed what we call a working definition of social cohesion. And I think my colleagues can throw that on the screen for you, but I'll also read that out just to get, let's say, the gray cells moving in today's session. So what we've defined social cohesion as is, cohesive and stable societies are characterized by general trust and a sense of belonging among its members, as well as participation in community life and collective action in support of shared goals. So some of the things that we are looking out for is that sense of belonging to a community, to a place. We are looking for trust in others within the community, but also local institutions. We are looking for positive and constructive interactions and participation in civic and social cultural activities. Those for us are indications of cohesive, respectively stable societies. Now that sounds nice on paper or on the screen in front of you, but the objective of today's session is to hear from the people on the ground, in the field. What are the real challenges? And most importantly, what works if you're trying to promote social cohesion? Those questions are the overall objective, or getting answers to those questions from the people that know best is the overall objective of this series of web dialogues that we are hosting. And we're very happy to be able to benefit from the breadth and expertise of partners that the Qudra 2 program works with across all 4 countries. And that's what we took into account today when we designed the session. So I'm very happy that we have representatives from all 4 program countries, but also from different sectors. So we have representatives of civil society organizations, some larger, some smaller. We have representatives of a local government agency, very important on this particular topic, as well as the private sector. And finally, experts from international development organizations discussing with us what approaches work in promoting social cohesion. So I hope we have a very interactive session. I hope we have a very engaging session. I would encourage you, as have Ebba and the colleagues at Taimani, to please share your comments and also questions in the chat so that we can pass them on to our speakers. And also use any comments for the documentation of today's session that we will prepare afterwards. And you'll be able to find that on our social media channels. That's it from my side. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the discussion and pass back over to you, Ebba, to introduce our panel.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, as Martin has said, we have a very diverse panel with representatives really from different sectors as well as different audiences and social groups. So that's wonderful. I would like to introduce Shir Mohammed from the NGO Zingizan in Iraq. Ahlan wa sahlan, great to have you with us. Najla Shada is country director for the organization Tabita Dorcas in Lebanon and Syria. She joins us, I think, from Beirut. Welcome. We have Haki Onur Ariner, who is a senior advisor on social cohesion mainstreaming for GIZ. He is joining us from Turkey. Great to have you with us. We have Önder Yalçin, who is director in the migration office of Gaziantep Metropolitan Municipality and also joins us from Turkey. And last but by no means least, Oriana Awaishe, who is the executive manager from Yerash Garments and Fashion Industry in Jordan and represents the private sector. Great to have you with us. Thanks for your time. The panel discussion will be moderated by Sami Hourani. He is a medical doctor by profession, so exactly what we need in these times, but also a social entrepreneur, quite multi-talented on many aspects, as probably you will see, and an excellent facilitator. Sami, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Abba, and thank you, Martin, for your great introduction. I also would like to thank our speakers who are joining us today. It is my pleasure to moderate the session today on social cohesion and stability. Actually, this is Qudra 2 Resilience Dialogue number 4. So we are on the 4th panel or dialogue, and we're very excited for this panel. So as Martin has already provided us with an interesting background, we also have the objectives of the dialogue today. We need to look at the challenges and also get into the successes and the best practices that have been done in the various countries participating with us today. So before we go further, let's jump into the discussion. I will start with before we go into starting with our speakers, I'll start with a poll. This poll is going to take the audience mood here. We have prepared, as I said, those polls in order for our audience to participate. We have 2 brief surveys. The first one we will share with you on the screen right now. We have around 15 seconds to answer on it. And then we will move to our panelists. In those polls and the Q&As in the future, those are for our audiences to be interactive and to get the mood of our audience. So let's start with the first poll. Which best describe the current situation in countries affected by the Syrian crisis? I'll start with the choices. I think we can see it on the screen. Which best describes the current situation in countries affected by the Syrian crisis? The number A, or A, the state of cohesion has decreased in the last 2 years. B, the state of social cohesion has not changed in the last 2 years. The state of cohesion has improved in the last 2 years. D, cannot say. It's too context specific. So those are the choices. We have 15 seconds. You should get the poll choices in front of your screen right now. Just choose one, and we will share with you. We'll share with you the results soon. We have 15 seconds to get your answers. As our colleagues have said before, we want an engaging, high-paced session. We have great speakers from various countries today, from Jordan, Iraq, Turkey, and we are excited for their input. So I'm pretty sure that most of us got already participated. So I'll jump to our, yes. So the survey results are already in front of me. Before I jump into the discussion with our first speaker from Lebanon, Najla, let me share with you the results. So the question again, which of the below describes the current situation in countries affected by the Syrian crisis? 62% basically said that it had decreased in the last 2 years, which is positive. 14% said did not change, and 17% said that they cannot say, it's too context specific, and 7% said has improved. So most of us, they said it's decreased. So before we go, this is just like to get the mood of what is the situation when it comes to social cohesion in regard to the Syrian crisis. So Najla with us from Lebanon. How are you, Najla?
I am fine, thank you.
Great, we're very happy having you with us.
Thank
I'm
you.
not sure if I can see you on the screen, if you can turn on your camera.
Yeah.
Yes, now I can see you. we're happy that I think there is no better than starting with Lebanon when it comes to social cohesion. And you are running a prominent NGO in Lebanon, and you are a social worker by training. So let's get into the broader sense of the situation. And according to your experience, why do you think social cohesion is important to consider in the crisis response? And let's start with the why question.
The why question. Yeah. Thank you. So as you have...
Sorry, if you can just lower your camera so we can see you properly. We can see half of your face.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you. Is it okay like that?
Yeah, yeah. If you can lower it a bit more, and then we can start. Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah. Do you want me to repeat the question, or you're?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So thank you for highlighting the importance of social cohesion, and we all agree that it is a peaceful, democratic factor for a prosperous community. So I would like to start by giving an example that I usually use often. Imagine you are a boat in the middle of the sea, while there is a storm ravaging everything, the boat and all the people. All people on the boat will need to move and cooperate with each other and with the personnel to survive. The same goes for our social interaction during a crisis. So this is to highlight the importance of, again, social cohesion and being able to put your full trust in other community members to achieve the same goal as yours pertain to social cohesion. We often, see social cohesion in our everyday life, which seems ordinary for us. One example of that is people resilience whenever a crisis would strike. There will be always someone who will not hesitate to help you, if you need it. Always you will find someone, because this is the nature of human beings. You might say that some of them only do that for recognition, maybe. But in real life, it is when people share the same feeling, I think, and aspiration and goals toward their community that they act like that. And I think if we think lately about the crisis that hit all community worldwide, the COVID pandemic, for example, we were all unified to, support each other, to help each other. And I think no man is in an island. It is a famous quote that most of us are aware of, and which remind us also of our, distinct and unique purpose. The truth is no one can ever do their usual routine without interacting with someone. Each person you encounter in every day may be someone you already, know, or a total stranger. So this is a kind of a general introduction. In the context of Lebanon specifically, multiple crises, mainly refugees influx crisis, has created a lot of tensions. Relation between, Lebanese of different background deteriorated significantly, along with the relation as well with the Lebanese, between the Lebanese and the refugees. And all that to add to the concurrent political, economic, security, and health crisis. All that has really impact on the people, and specifically on the most vulnerable. So I think despite its sensitivity, social cohesion is important for multiple reasons. First, to create resilience to escalating conflict, which is our case in Lebanon, to avoid further segregation and tensions that could result in violence, and to create some stability in an unstable situation.
Yeah. So I will leave those recommendations. But before we jump into the challenges, I mean, you said that definitely there are issues and there was impact when it comes to social cohesion among Lebanese themselves and the Lebanese and refugees. How is this demonstrated? Like, how do you see this? Can you give us some examples?
Yes, for sure. You know, working, for example, the work in certain districts where municipalities are putting, for example, some constraint on refugees, forbidding refugees, for example, to get out after a certain hour during day, or especially when some conflicts occurred, conducted because of poverty, but by some of the refugees. So the whole community has banned refugees to enter the villages.
Yeah.
So those are some examples that happened. And it had also a lot of efforts to stop those conflicts, or at least to talk about those conflicts and to try to solve them among the community. And I think we will talk later how this happened while we talk about the role of civil society.
Yeah. Before we move into that, let's focus on the challenges that you currently face in the Lebanese context. What kind of challenges combating the issue of segregation, the issue of extremism and racism, and promoting social cohesion and stability is crucial for Lebanon and for all the countries in the region. So what are the challenges that's hindering you from going there?
Yeah, first, I think participants' engagement and commitment in the long run, especially from the host community, who often see less added value in their participation in social cohesion activities. Sometimes host community might not be ready as well to engage with refugees, as they project most of their issue on the refugees, who on the contrary are far more eager to build a relationship and change the perception toward them. So this is one challenge.
So you're talking about the host communities being able to welcome refugees and being able to deal with them for the better good of the whole country.
Yeah, it's not always the case, I say. It's sometimes very difficult for them. Then local authority, in some instance, for example, as I mentioned previously, have largely hindered social cohesion between host community and refugees. They put restriction, for example, on project implementation, mainly when it comes to service and activities that are hosting other than the Lebanese nationals. So this is one challenge as well. The perception of the Lebanese community toward humanitarian actors, that they are more supportive for the Syrian community than for the host community. And the implementation of project activities with mixed gender group caused as well significant challenges in some cases. For example, when you have adolescents from conservative family and you are conducting activities with different background, with refugees from different background. So we encounter a lot of resistance from family members as a result of this activity. So we had several times parents coming complaining and saying, we don't want our children to be engaged in this type of activities with other foreigners. They don't dare always to talk about it publicly, but they made it as a general. And one other big challenge is the increasing shortfall in funding. So, you start a certain type of activity and then the projects will end and the country is not yet ready to take, or the local public institutions are not ready to take over, which is usually the role of, the local authorities to take over this type of activities.
Yeah. You still have more challenges, or can I zoom in one of the challenges that you mentioned?
I can add one
Okay,
if
please.
I have time. Projects that deliver humanitarian assistance or basic service alone are not enough to maintain a peaceful community relation. Additional support is needed to sustain this peaceful behavior. And this is a long-term, activity that needs time, efforts, and this is not always possible. And finally, let me just say the economic crisis that is affecting the country has a major impact, especially on the livelihood sector.
Yeah. I was intrigued by the third challenge that you mentioned, which is the perception of the public when it comes to the projects that's given to refugees, and there are more discrimination. Where does this come from? Are those really, when we talk about international organizations, is there really discrimination between the host communities and the refugees, or is just a perception?
No, it's not. It's not only a perception. As I said, it's linked as well to the economic crisis that Lebanon is facing. We used before the 2019 to have always projects supporting children at school, providing basic assistance. And this was not a major concern. I think many of the Lebanese were supportive, were understanding. But now when it came after 2019, while many of the normal, let me say, not refugees, but host community became jobless, lost their way, of surviving, and lost their job, and are not able to afford and cannot find easily support. So they are looking at the refugees like, look at those who are receiving,
support and aid.
Support. So for sure, we know that this is the role of our government, but our government is very weak, and they are not taking, as I mentioned before, their responsibility toward the local community.
Well, I would like to thank you, Najla, for now, and I want to move. I'll be back to you with more, I would say, more positive side, where we look at how we can solve those things, the opportunities and the best practices. So I'll be moving to Shiar from Iraq, and to reflect on the situation when it comes to social cohesion in Iraq. So let's get a glimpse on the importance of social cohesion in Iraq and move to Shiar. So Shiar, welcome to our session.
Thank you.
We're glad having you with us. Before I jump into the questions with you, I would like also to urge our audience to ask questions and comment on the discussion. I think we have been already went into the depth of it. We're talking about the challenges in Lebanon and now moving to Iraq. So we would like to hear your comments and your questions. So Shiar, based on your experience, you have been very active in Iraq. You represent a community-based environmental NGO, and you have been in touch with people, and you have seen this situation. So what are the challenges in your perspective?
So the situation in Iraq isn't as dear as in Lebanon. The host community is more welcoming. The social cohesion has deteriorated a little bit due to the economical crisis and the ISIS war, the flux of the IDPs who came into the area, the returnees. For the last couple of years, the situation has been a little bit bad. It's like a conflict or a fight for the opportunity to work. A lot of Syrian students have been accepted to the local universities, which added to more graduates without any opportunity to work. This created a little bit like a unfair or unfairness sense among the host community. Not all of them, a small amount of them, wondering why they are allowed to go to our universities, why they are allowed to get opportunities as us. International organization, NGOs, started to implement projects, especially agriculture projects that are required to be managed by host community, refugees, host community, IDPs, refugees. which allow to have more of interaction between them. After the COVID-19, people started to get away from each other again due to the lockdown for a very long time. Now they are becoming more like separated islands. So what we did when we started one of our projects was to bring the people together in a community garden. It wasn't to provide like a stable income for them, but to provide a space for them to meet, to cultivate some simple vegetables, and to spend some quality time together. We found out that when they have some common activities doing, especially when it requires some labor from them, from their side, and their kids come together with them, the cohesion is increased, the stress is going lower. So the main challenge is to have this kind of small activities that bring them together. Those aren't focused on. The main focus now on among the organizations are livelihood in a higher level. So big projects or medium projects or individually run projects, when we start to bring the people together, it will be easier to.
So Najla talked a lot about other challenges that's maybe related to the Lebanese context, but also maybe that can apply to the Iraqi context, whether the problem of the host communities or the local authorities or the perceptions of people. Is there any specific challenges when it comes to the Iraqi context from your perspective?
So as I said before, the situation in Iraq isn't as dear as in Lebanon, because when the people started coming to Kurdistan region in Iraq, the economic situation was way better. They were more accepting, more hospitable to them. There aren't a lot of restrictions. Well, there aren't any restrictions on work, or only our refugees aren't allowed to work in governmental posts, but any other job opportunities they are allowed to. They are admitted to local universities as the students here. But the people themselves, when the economic situations started to go south, go north, they started to feel like a sense of threat. And it was also the services provided by the UN agencies and international partners to the refugees and to the IDPs, without providing any services to the host community, were like a cause of some crisis, some conflicts. But when they started to provide these services and to work on the host communities and the infrastructure in the country itself, these voices calm down a little bit.
Okay. So we're talking about justice and fairness as entry points and to promoting social cohesion in Iraq. I would like to thank you, Shiar, for your intervention. I'll be back to you with the successes and the solutions that you have done. I'll be moving to Jordan, to Oriana Awaishe. Welcome to the panel, Oriana. And moving, we have, I'm not sure. Yeah. Yes, I can see you now. Moving, I mean, our past two speakers, they have mentioned the economic situation as one of the main things when it comes to promoting social cohesion. And you lead a business that received an attention, and you have a lot of efforts to integrate refugees in Jordan. Yeah. So in your opinion, what are the role does social cohesion play between host communities and refugees when it comes to the job market or the workplace?
Thank you for having me in this, and let me introduce myself. My name is Oriana. I am the executive manager of Jarash Garments. Place it's in Jordan. Actually, what we believe in our company, that having a job is having a new chance.
So I think what the refugees and how we react to support the refugee was to create job opportunities for them and to help them to go over all the difficulties or all the obstacles that was really preventing them to join to work. And if I may have enough time, I'd like to go back in the 2017, where we started to be one of the first companies to employ the Syrian refugees. It was almost like nothing clear. We don't know what is the regulation. We don't know how to give them the permission to leave the refugee camp and how to join the companies. So it was really very difficult and complicated, but with the help of International Labour Organization, it became like something very clear. And right now the regulation is very easy to help them to join the companies and to work. But it was not an easy mission at the beginning, especially as I said, there was one clear regulation. Number two, we had that the refugee camp are extremely far away from the companies. So the transportation was one of the major problems. As a company, we provide free transportation. The second challenge was to help to interview them and talk to them, to meet them, to convince them to come and try to be to work in a private sector. It was not easy, but meeting and trying to convince them, maybe bring them to the company just as a visit. Later on, it became easy to get them inside in the company. And the third thing was that there is no daycare center for the mothers. So immediately we create a very beautiful modern daycare center where the father and mother, they can bring their children, and they can enjoy this facility for free. And the last problem, the last obstacle was they don't have any idea or any experience about the garment sector. So we came and we make our own training center, and during the training, the worker will receive full salary. So those were the 4 obstacles. We had them, but we go over them, and alhamdulillah, we believe as a company, we were very successful in attracting and employing the Syrian refugees. The last thing I'd like to say, they are very loyal, productivity is very high. So in a business angle, we do benefit, of course, because as I say, loyal, productive, and also they were our ticket, let's say, to enter to the European market under the like an FTA with the new rule of origin for EU. So it was a very win-win situation for both parties.
That's great to hear, and I'm happy that most of the challenges that you have mentioned, you have been also working to address them and combat them. I want to ask you about the challenge of and the role. You get people to the same work environment, refugees and the host communities. How is the relation there?
Nice question. Actually, in our company, we have around 6,000 workers from different nationalities. So we have Jordanian, we have Syrian, we have Bangladesh, Indian, Sri Lankan, Burma, Nepal, Pakistani, Chinese, and Hong Kong. So Taiwanese also. So as you see, we are very multiple nationalities. So we are used to we have the enough experience how to host all those nationalities, cultures in one location. So bringing the Syrian refugees inside the company, it was not a big challenge for the company with such a big experience. Yes, but it's very important to say that it was little bit, we found that there is some issues, some problems those Syrian refugees they used to have, and you cannot blame because of all what they go through. So our company create like a welfare team to help to communicate with them and see how we can help and to make it easy for them. But to be integrated in this community. It was not difficult, believe me, because we have
what about Jordanians' relation to the Syrians? Like, did they welcome them, or it was were there any sensitivity there?
Sir, as you know, Jordan, since Jordan in 1920s, Jordan is very used to have a lot different nationalities of refugees, and you have the history, of course.
Yeah.
So we are very welcoming as Jordanian. I'm saying now, as Jordanian. So we did not face any of those issues that maybe people will be at the beginning thought that maybe the Jordanian will think that Syrian are taking their job opportunities. No, this was not in this. We did not face any issue like this. As I say, we are very used to.
You're talking about your company or in Jordan in general?
In Jordan and in our company.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to thank you, Oriana. I'll be back to you with learning more about what you do in order to combat the challenges and promoting integration. I'll be moving to Önder from Turkey.
Hello.
Hello, Önder. Welcome to our panel. I know that you coordinate a lot of efforts in Gaziantep Metropolitan Municipality, and you represent a different perspective here. You represent more the municipalities, I would say, or the government side, and you have been in Gaziantep hosting very significant number of Syrian refugees in the past 10 years, and I still think that you have a big population there. So since that time, we're talking about 10 years right now. Time flies. I mean, you can feel that the Syrian crisis was a couple of years ago, but it's already 10 years. So how the social cohesion issue evolved over that period?
Thank you, Sami. First of all, it's a pleasure for me to be here and to share my experiences. Actually, indeed, the social cohesion evolved. What we learned and experienced over this period is that social cohesion is not something you can provide by only focused activities. It's a process, and communities need to digest it. We as local authorities are not the providers, but we are only facilitators. It's not that simple. You bring people together and you ask them to join activities and expect the cohesion. This is not working, unfortunately. As a local authority, we open spaces for communities which is equally accessible for all. Then they handle the rest. When they start to get to know each other, and when they have the equal opportunities, then they don't see each other as a threat or as a competitor anymore. From Turkish perspective, with the national policy, in that 10 years, we just transformed temporary education centers for Syrian children to public schools. And now we say education for all children, they have right to access public education free of charge. And also the national policy, Turkish government issued a regulation and accessing refugees to labor market. That was another important issue in order to facilitate social cohesion, and also free access to healthcare services. These are quite important issues. While national government working on that aspect, as local authorities, we are working also on education, employment, healthcare services. One of the aspects, maybe this is a little bit different than other refugee hosting countries in the region, is the language. Language is an important barrier for social cohesion. That's why different organizations, including municipality, working on language and language courses. So providing Turkish and Arabic language is a must. So now I can say that thinking from short-term and humanitarian aid based, now we are transforming to mid-term and long-term and focusing on community development and building resilience in the region.
That's great to hear. 10 years, do you think that the language barrier decreased over time?
Yes, indeed, especially among children. Once they arrived to Turkey, maybe they were newborn or they were just 2-3 years old. Now they speak Turkish very well. That's why now we have Arabic courses for Syrian children, because also we want them to keep the Arabic language as well. So now we have Arabic courses. So many Turkish people, they start to learn Arabic, and also Syrian refugees, now they are attending different courses because different organizations, they provide language courses. So you can feel that in the region, in Gaziantep, that issue, that language barrier decreasing, but still we have to work more and more.
Okay, so is there any specific challenges that your municipality is facing when it comes to social cohesion?
Yes, actually social cohesion is a multi-dimensional phenomenon. Gaziantep is hosting almost 500,000 refugees today. In order to eliminate tension among both communities, Turkish and Syrian, you have to provide the means of a decent life. It's not only social services, but also infrastructure, public spaces, parks and recreation areas, sports areas, swimming pools, transportation, like public health services, waste management, water, sanitation, and also we can add many more to the list. Any of them is a quite important aspect on the way to social cohesion. If only one of them is missing, you can feel the tension among both communities. To me, the biggest challenge from our perspective is budgetary, because with the rapid increase of the population, 22%, in Gaziantep, we had to brought forward all the investment and strategic planning, almost 10 years, 15 years ahead. So what we are experiencing on the field, if you are short on providing like services, then this is the biggest risk for social cohesion. So from our point of view, economic issues and budgetary issues is the biggest risk and challenge for social cohesion.
That's interesting. I mean, the economic situation was the dominating factor among most of our speakers and in most countries. And we see that most of the challenges were evolving around justice and fairness and equal opportunities. Do you still see that the situation in Turkey or the public sentiment when it comes to social cohesion in Turkey, is it getting better towards refugees or is it standing still? Let's say that you want to answer the poll yourself. How do you answer it? Is it decreasing? Is it increasing? Is it standing still?
If I'm looking from the broader perspective and window, it's increasing. And because there are different organizations newly established for social cohesion, these are like central government entities and different local authorities. They are establishing migration and refugees unit. They want to focus on the issue. As I said, when I look at the broader perspective, it's increasing, but there are some milestones, some like time of period, which are quite important. I can give some example about economic crisis or election terms. These are the time that we can see the decrease on social cohesion and also the positive opinions. But as I said, these are some specific time of period. When we look at the broader perspective, I can easily say that the social cohesion activities and also the attitude of the government and local authorities increasing.
With that, I would like to thank you for your input here. And with those positive notes and seeing that things are improving when it comes to social cohesion, let's move to the next step or the next phase of our panel, which is what works, and looking at the great work that has been done in the various countries participating with us. Before we go into the solutions and the successful approaches, I would like to get the insight of our great audience with us today and ask them two questions. I'll start with the survey. We're going to do the same way that we have done it with the first poll. We have 15 seconds after I read, and you will see the question on your screen. So we'll start with the first question. Which statement best describes most crisis response programs that you're aware of? Which statement best describes most crisis response programs that you are aware of? A, social cohesion is ignored. social cohesion receives too little attention, social cohesion receives the required attention, there is too much emphasis put on social cohesion. A, B, C, D on the first poll. You should get the polling screen in front of you for those two. So let me move to the second question, which is, which statement best describes most crises that you are aware of? So here we are talking about the same question, but with the different statements. Social cohesion, if you think, is a black box. We don't know what we are doing. When it comes to social cohesion, we are in the phase of experimentation and evaluation. We know, C, we know that what works to promote social cohesion. So the first, we're looking at to which extent social cohesion is getting a priority. The second question is to which extent we know about social cohesion when it comes to programming and solutions. So we have 15 seconds. I think most of us had already participated, and I'll move to our speakers and I'll be waiting the results from them. So I'll move back. So the results are back. That has been really fast. So just for you, when it comes to the priority of social cohesion, 42% they think that it gets too little attention, and 29% they think that it's receiving the required attention, and only 17% think that it's ignored. So I'll move to Najla, and taking those numbers in consideration and looking at the role of civil society in promoting social cohesion. So Najla, are you with me?
Yes, I am with you.
Yes. So what do you think the role of civil society? You're leading one of the biggest, and Tabitha, and you have been working in this field. What is the role of civil society right now, and how can they support those communities and improve the situation of social cohesion?
Well, I think first of all, in our situation and the weakness of our government, one of the most important role that civil society is playing is that to ensure or make sure that state respects some fundamental right to social protection.
I need to interrupt you just to, if you can turn on your camera, maybe you forgot, and we will stop at the state. You were mentioning the relation between civil society and the state. So yeah, I was saying due in our context, I think, and especially the weakness of our government and all local authorities. I think one of the biggest role that civil society is playing is to ensure that the state respect the fundamental rights of social protection and advocate for the right of refugees and host community as well. So this is one very important role. And I think civil society are at the forefront of efforts to manage community relationship, because the community trusts the civil society where there is a lack of trust with the government. So establishing dialogue and building sustainable relationship will enable the community members to address some tensions together, increase their feeling of belonging, and hence their social and caring responsibility toward the society they live in. And civil society can provide professional experts and staff that would facilitate communication channel with the community. So this is an important role that
civil society can play.
I wanna have Shiar with us as well. You are from the civil society. I mean, we're talking about more trust. Najla is telling us the civil society at the front line with the community, they have more trust. People accept them and trust them more than the governments. They have better communication. Do you agree?
Yes, actually, because they come from the society, and the civil society organizations, they work to promote civil rights. They want to excavate the potential the society, the community has, and the main role we are playing here in Iraq is to be the driving force for people to take their role in building their society and taking the responsibility to not just receive and wait for services and wait for the government to take some actions. We need to take our role. We need to take some steps, even if they are some small steps, baby steps, but those steps can be taken in our field, in environmental field. Even if we are planting only one tree, that tree has an effect on the world as a whole, on the climate change, on the environment. So our work is to bring the people into action, to bring them to be interactive, to take their role, to take the step, the stage.
Do you have like a best practice or like a very successful thing that worked when it comes, that you would like to share with us when it comes to social cohesion?
Now, I've worked in education. We were providing free English courses for refugees, IDPs, and host community. When we brought them together and we were learning together, the prejudice, the stereotyping, the barrier between them has broken, because they had one common goal. They were going forward to learn a new language. All of them were able to speak Kurdish, but they were learning to speak a new language that will help them in their education, in their professional life, in their future plans. For environmental practices, for agriculture, when we brought them together, when they are working together, when they provided their expertise, the IDP's expertise in agriculture was way higher than the host community. And a huge amount of the refugees come from the agricultural background. So their expertise in this field help to advance the agriculture business in the region.
I'll go back to Najla with the best practices and I would say successes that you had throughout your work in Lebanon. But we have a really short time, Najla. Are you
sorry, I was not able to unmute. Now I'm okay. So I would share I think our current project under Qudra, this was to reinforce the SDC in 3 SDC of the government, to reinforce the activities between refugees and local community. When we started, I think there was a lack of trust in the work that the SDC could do, especially social worker. So our activities had a major impact on building the capacity of the SDC and encouraging the local community to attend the activity. They trusted the Tabita and wanted to join the activity that we had before in the area. So they easily connected together.
Yeah. So what kind of challenges or needs that you think you need, or what kind of support you need in order to improve your work and to be more effective when it comes to facing the challenges of social cohesion?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that programming, short program are not enough, and those activities would need a long-term, period to have the impact. So I think designing this would require from the donor community long-term projects and activities, meaning more than 1 or 2 years on a longer term. It requires more, funds as well, because it will require more expertise on the field. So this would be very important.
So we're talking about sustainability and long-term projects. Shiar, if we ask you the same question, what is required in order to be more effective? What kind of support do you need?
As Najla has said, long-term support is needed, but also we need to work from the perspective of the community itself. What is needed, and we need to ensure their dignity in work, not just receiving some aids. So when they are taking responsibility for their life, for their livelihood, they became a complete human being again, and they can integrate more with the community they are living in. I'm talking about refugees, IDPs, and host community. So the main obstacle is livelihood, and also not giving, promoting the mentality of just receiving, but promoting the integrity of people and promoting them to take responsibility for their life, for their livelihood, and providing the opportunities, which requires working on some regulations and the market itself. So if the government can take some measures in this
legal environment,
yes,
and
legal environment, yes.
Yeah. Moving to Oriana and the private sector role in social cohesion, and Oriana told us a lot about the success of the venture in having people together, and here we're talking about Jewish garments and fashions. How did it work? Why you're successful, in your opinion?
I guess because, again, what we've done is to study where is the obstacles. We study with them how to solve it, and immediately it was created. So all of these help to bring the workers and to make them have better working environment in the company. And most of them now, they've been working with us since 2017 up to now, and we still hiring more and more workers. We are very open to hire up to 500 Syrian refugees.
So in your opinion, and this is what I can get from what you have said, you think that the economic opportunities that you're providing for people and the unified goal for people to be productive and loyal to a specific goal is what led to promote the social cohesion in your company?
Exactly, Doctor. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Yes.
So just to share with you that 71% of our audience thought that we are in the phase of experimentation and evaluation when it comes to promoting social cohesion. I assume that maybe you are among the 8% who thinks that they know what it works to promote social cohesion.
Correct.
Do you think that we are still in the experimentation and evaluation?
If you're talking about
71%.
If you are going to talk about our company, so I think
in Jordan, let's reflect on the
in Jordan. Yes, you are correct. Yes, I agree with the majority, because we still don't have that enough experience and the concept how to facilitate everything. But with an expert people, let's say expert companies, it's not an issue. But with the majority, yes, it is.
Okay. So, and just to continue on the results, 21% they think that we don't know anything on what we're doing when it comes to social cohesion. So we have 1/5 who thinks that we still are ignorant when it comes to social cohesion. I will move to Under, and Under is, yeah. Welcome back, Under, and I'll move to the questions that's related to successes and what had been working with you at the municipality and the promising approaches, the best practices that you have been doing in order to improve the situation of social cohesion.
Yeah, actually, to start with, we are aware that refugees themselves are not the reason for instability in the community, but poor leadership and poor policies they do. And also, we have to understand that migration is not a problem that we have to solve. It's a reality we have to manage. So with the fact that in order to promote social cohesion, understanding the basics of it very crucial. So our main approach as municipalities leave no one behind. Actually, all the services that municipality provide, we try our best to make them open and equally accessible for refugees and also for host community members. And also this social cohesion, our approach requires responsibility sharing, because we know that refugees themselves, they have potential, they can contribute a lot to the community. So we also ask from them to help us to improve our work. And one example from our work is a community center. And basically that community center run by refugees themselves. And they provide services for refugees and also for host community members. And also host community members, Turkish people, they realize that they are doing a great job. They are full of potential. They are not only consuming, but they are also putting something to the community. So that showing the responsibility sharing is quite important. And also as municipality, we are, as I said, we are opening spaces to bring them together and give them time and space to get to know each other. Then they realize actually they are not too different one from another. They share the same fears, they share the same hopes, and their biggest concern is the future of their children. So after some time, the empathy takes place of dread or anger. So this is quite important for us. The main approach of municipality, briefly, I can summarize with that line.
I mean, definitely saying creating spaces, time, and common goals, and maybe sharing common challenges and obstacles are main drives for creating empathy and then promoting social cohesion. What kind of support do you need from the international actors in your perspective as a municipality?
Yeah, as a again wide perspective, we need responsibility sharing, because we know that not only for Turkey, also for Jordan, for Lebanon, migration issue is a global issue. So we need a global vision and also international responsibility sharing in order to manage that phenomenon. So we know.
What do you mean by responsibility sharing?
That means there's a crisis. Now refugees, they live in Turkey, they live in Jordan, they live in Lebanon. But we don't have enough resources, all the countries.
But there are a lot of programs have been taken on since the beginning of the crisis.
Excuse me, sorry.
There's a lot of programs and a lot of funding going. So you think that the responsibility was not shared by the international organizations? Do you think the governments got more on their side?
I think also international community, they do a lot. But from our, again, point of view, money is not everything. So also we need to share the same feelings, because sometimes we criticize that there are a lot of organizations or countries, these are developed countries, they kind of help those countries in the region in order to stop the migration flow to Europe or to any other country. So many organizations, so many local authorities, maybe countries in the region criticize this. So first of all, we need to understand each other and we need to come each other with open hands. So here we know the local dynamics and we know the needs and we have the local tools. And international actors, they have other strengths, they can easily access the funds. They have different experiences from different locations, from different regions. And also they have the examples of best practices. So once we collaborate, once we work together, once we understand each other very well, I think the quality and also the efficiency of our work multiplied. And from my point of view, this collaboration is also a massive step to build a resilient and cohesive community.
Thank you. So money is not everything when it comes to sharing responsibilities. We're talking about sharing knowledge, skills, empathy, and maybe ownership of the problem. Those are the highlights. So
Exactly.
Moving to the perspective of the international organizations, we have Honor from GIZ Turkey. Welcome on the panel, Honor. Haki, Honor, sorry, I cannot hear you. I can see you. Maybe you're still muted. So Honor, your program in GIZ Turkey have been working on mainstreaming social cohesion. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Oriana, if you can mute your microphone. Yeah, we can hear you. So if, we just heard about the sharing responsibilities, and, you have been working on a lot of projects, and what can you tell us more concretely on what successful approaches you have developed? No, we cannot hear you.
So can you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So first of all, I just want to say that I don't totally agree with Önder's sort of approximation of where we're at in Turkey. And I think, it's important to put this forward.
Sorry to interrupt, Haki. We cannot see you. It's frozen. So maybe just like the camera just got frozen. So we can also, yes, now we can see you.
Okay.
And hear
and you can hear me.
Thank you.
All right, great. So I just want to say that I don't really agree with some of the sort of general picture that was painted about Turkey. First of all, you asked about the Turkish language classes, for example. I have some statistics here that unfortunately do not paint that positive picture, because a lot of international organizations, like you said, since 2014 have been giving a lot of money to different sectors of the refugee response in Turkey, and it really hasn't resulted in the results that you would expect from that much aid, and also the aid that's provided by the government itself, the Turkish government, obviously. So, for example, just to say, although numerous IGOs, NGOs, as I said, provide language programs as well as chambers of industry and commerce, and especially through the A1 and A2 levels through public education centers tied to the Ministry of National Education, the number of Syrians who have command of the Turkish language to help them with the labor market is still very low. One survey stated that 4 out of 5 Syrians have only basic Turkish language skills, 18% being at an intermediate level, and only 3% with advanced command of the Turkish language. Many surveys show that Syrians consider their knowledge very little or non-existent. We have a huge informal labor market in Turkey. This is a structural problem in Turkey. 30% of Turks were already informally employed when Syrians came. Also a little bit due to the ESSN support that they're receiving and the fact that they lose it if they find a job. Around 90% of Syrians work informally in Turkey. So these are just very broad parameters that show the challenges that we're facing in Turkey. And this is exacerbated by the economic crisis, like like most of the panelists said, along with the COVID that came on top of that, and political, of course, ideology and the political use of this xenophobia, basically, and anti-refugee sentiment in Turkey for elections. So now there is, I mean, the situation is very dire in Turkey, I must say. And many of the political parties that are trying to get into power are using this subject, anti-refugee sentiment, to do so, because due to the economic crisis, these refugees have been scapegoated. And seeing the situation with the informal labor market, as I said, and the lack of Turkish language and the lack of integration, political, cultural, and economic into Turkey, there's a large sentiment that that Syrians should leave. And every survey, national survey that has been done in Turkey shows an increase in the social distance, between the Turkish community and the Syrian community.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are reflecting on some of the challenges, but what are you doing as a program, as a project to combat that and to improve the situation?
Well, okay, ours is one of the biggest bilateral.
Yeah, if it can be as concise as possible, sir.
Okay, ours is one of the biggest bilateral programs. And
sorry,
the interpreter has. I'm hearing the interpreter. Okay.
Yeah, I think
so. Okay, what we do is we help out with the employment and skills development. We also create entrepreneurship and startup support, and we have a strengthening of the business environment. Those are three components of our very large program. And with this, of course, we try to create solutions to these problems that I talked about. So we try formalization of the businesses. We create business Turkish language programs, for example. We ensure that the chambers match the vocational trainings that are created with the actual labor market needs, for example. So these are some of the ways in which we try to work around some of the structural constraints that we're faced with, and promote the economic integrations of Syrians to Turkey.
Yeah. Well, I would like to thank you for your input, and I would like to get also the questions and the comments of the audience. But before that, as we have said before, we would like to come up with the concrete and final remarks. Then we were going to take the questions and the comments from the audience and get the answers and then conclude. So I'll start with Najla with your final remark for the future, remarks and recommendations. Najla, are you with us? Okay, we'll move to
sorry. No, I was asking, sorry, before I answer, there was some question in the chat. Shall we answer them by chat?
The organizers would like us to take the questions at the end. Let's share the recommendations and then we will go back to the questions. Yeah, there are comments and questions.
Okay, so I think working towards social cohesion between different parties, require a lot of positive interaction. And this should be arranged also by all the parties involved. So I think a successful project aiming at strengthening social cohesion should be informed by a holistic approach, incorporating humanitarian development and peace-building consideration.
Thank you, Najla. I will move to Chiar.
Yep. From our side, I think some regulations should be done to protect the local markets, so the local producers can be protected and able to gain a foothold, especially that more than 80% of the market or the industries are imported. So we need to work on protecting the local producers here in in Kurdistan region. And for better practices, I think if we have all the communities, refugees, host community, IDPs, have a common goal to work toward. And what we are working on is the climate change, which is something that all the world should work towards and to reduce the impact on it. So
recommendation.
Our recommendation is to focus more on environmental and co-hosted projects, not just support IDPs separately from refugees, from host community. If any support is provided, any kind of projects should be hosted toward all three of the components.
Thank you very much, Oriana, with your final remarks and recommendation.
NGOs and the private sector should work side by side to help the Syrian refugees to integrate in the community, and the private sector also to create more job opportunities.
The role of so basically augmenting the role of the private sector along with the government. The final remarks and recommendations from Under.
Again, I will point out the responsibility sharing. As local authorities, we need to understand that this is a reality we have to deal with in the near future. And also we know the local dynamics and we know the local needs. And also international organizations, they have different strengths, like they have access to funds and they have best examples of best practices. I think we should work together in the name of beneficiaries and also refugees. Thank you.
Thank you, Honor.
In terms of recommendations, I think mostly to build inclusive learning, working, and business environments, especially very important. Stopping these ad hoc one-off social cohesion events due to the projectizations, you know, like picnics and movie going, showing. Of course, these are important, but social interaction theory says, and our practice in the field says that they need regular, sustained, and quality interaction to actually for this to work. So that would be the main recommendation.
Thank you very much for being concise. Currently, I'll move to the comments and the questions by the audience. I'll take some of your comments. So we have a comment from Karsten Waldner. He or she saying regarding Lebanon, it's unfortunately a reality that part of the international support is still exclusively provided for refugees and not taking the host community duly into consideration. Our EU-funded project, Hopes Lab, provides support to both targeted groups, which is definitely helps to decrease tensions and to improve cohesion. Here we're talking about like having the host communities being involved. We also had another question, another comment from Farida saying that the Qudra 2 has started with 30% when it comes to refugees versus Lebanese. Now the proportion changed to 60-40, so we also improved. Martin is telling us also, do refugees and host communities work on the same productions lines? This question to Oriana, and he's basically asking if the refugees and the host communities working together on the same product at the same time. He's aiming to see if there are really interaction together or there's direct interaction. We also see, of course, there are some comments from Azza Hayek saying that you have impressive work, Oriana. Iman is also thanking you. There are also a question on, or a comment that the challenges aside, has there been areas where refugees and IDPs provided an added value for a special expertise in the areas businesses they have worked in from perspective of the speakers? And this is in Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, and how did that affect the social cohesion? Either positively or negatively, for example, by creating a sense of competitiveness with the local community due to lower wages often given to refugees. He's talking about the economic opportunities provided to refugees. Also, there is from Madeleine, I would be interested to know how the speakers assess the actual situation on equal access to services and opportunities and perceived, and how is it perceived? How big is the issue of groups having wrong view of other groups and what they receive aligns to the topic of false information and thinking one is disadvantaged, although it's actually not the case. So those are the perceptions that we said that refugees are getting more than the host communities. So this is a question on how they see the actual situation. Maybe we can take just like one sentence from each of the participants to reflect on this issue. Also, we have from Rula from EU delegation, international donors are currently assisting citizens in Lebanon, both Lebanese and refugees at all levels through CSOs in view of weak and high level of corruption in the government. After the Beirut portal passed, it was only CSOs which was working on the ground in the absence of government. I think this is reinforcing the role of civil society. Also, there is another comment that from Rula saying that we need more commitment of the international community to promote engagement of civil society at policy level, not only funding opportunities. So here we're talking about more involvement of the civil society for policies. Here there are also another comment to be empowered to be a partner to the government in shaping policies, not only as implementers or as service providers. Also here, there's from Farida to Madame Shahda, one of the areas where Qudra 2 is implemented by Tabitha in Lebanon is Shofiyat, whereas the risk of the collective eviction by local authorities was very high a few weeks ago. How can Tabitha be successful in building trust between communities when the general context is not conducive at all? Please clarify. So those are some of the questions. I will, due to the time constraint that we have, I would like to have the answers by you. I'll start with Najla on that last question and also reflecting on the comments that you have received. And then we will go speaker by speaker.
Okay, thank you. So
we have less than a minute.
Yeah. Eviction was based on, political problem inside the municipality. So, and I think in general, for some of the members, PSS was not a priority for the local community because we are conducting psychosocial support in that specific community. So when we had the problem, we had several meetings with the municipality, with a focus group from the community, with Minister of Social Affairs. And we agreed all together that we will take into consideration their needs and that we will try to seek other opportunities that will respond to their needs. And this was very helpful in our negotiation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oriana, you had a question about the line working together and also the perception on the situation when it comes to the host community relation to the refugees.
The question was about the working condition. It is similar. So all the nationalities, including the Syrian refugees, are producing the same product. Regardless of the nationality, all of them are receiving the same salary. So there is no any competition in regarding the salary or anything. So it is all equal.
Yeah, and they're working on the same product lines?
Exactly, yes.
So they're direct connection.
Yeah.
Do you see the perception when it comes to refugees and host communities? Is it improving over time?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Oriana. Shiar? Do you have any comment on the questions on the issue of
there was a question about the expertise that the refugees and IDPs provided. Yes, since they have come into the region, they have provided a lot of expertise, especially in the agricultural field, as I said before, and some of the other occupations, which allow those services to be provided in a lower prices and led to the market to have less restraint and those services to be provided in a lower prices. So that increased the sense of belonging and the acceptance between the people.
Yeah. Under. Do you have any answers to some of the questions or comments? If not, I'll be moving to Honor. Any final comments or thoughts?
Yeah, it was stressed, the equal access to services and the issue of misinformation, I think, was one of the questions. So yeah, equal access to services is critical, obviously, for social cohesion. In Turkey, that would require an empowerment of refugees and the promotion of rights seeking. We try to do this with a lot of awareness raising, especially also on the topic of gender equality, which again continues to be a very big problem. And awareness raising on rights and services are available. How to access these services is always something that we work on. These are not just the rights, also including banking, credit services, for example, referral to protection services. And yeah, that's, I just wanted to say that. And also there was a comment saying about my, there was a comment for me, noting my negative assessment. I would have to say that's not my subjective assessment. This is empirically validated objectively by surveys that were scientifically implemented over years. And this increase of social distance is an objective fact. It's not my subjective. And 20,000 Syrian students, yes, this is a good thing, but we have 3.6 million Syrians under temporary protection, which in a situation of a protracted temporariness in Turkey. So it has to be weighed against that fact. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And on the behalf of Qudra 2, I would like to close this panel and thank you all for your presence with us, for your valuable input, for our audience, for their engaging questions and comments. And I will move to my colleague, Abba. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sami. I think you already closed the panel, so there is very little bit for me to say. We have already run slightly over time. So just so that you are aware of, today's session will be documented in a short report and provided to everybody who is has registered on the website of the Resilience Dialogue. And the link to the website will be posted now in the chat. So please make a copy or note it down so that you're able to also to register on the website and get the report. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank the panelists, as Sami has already said. Thanks for your participation, for your valuable input, for your contributions, and also the questions that were raised specifically when it comes also to recommendations from your side as practitioners. This was the 4th online dialogue of a series. Thanks in advance. We're looking forward for the 5th. Have a great rest of the day and hope to see you soon. Bye.